the end game, from the gate. How do we create great music that builds its own economy that's sustainable? What's going on, good people? Welcome to another episode of the Wrap Up. I have my guest host, co-host with me. He's never a guest. He's really family. You know what I'm saying? My brother from another mother, the impeccable K.A. Everyday. Tell the people what's up, my brother.
It's your boy K. Look, I just want to let everybody know, man, Cam Newton ain't the only one that can wear big brim hats, man. So I had to dig in the collection.
I love it.
Man.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, let's
Absolutely.
get it.
Yo, so a lot been going on. The name of this episode, we're going to call it Surviving the Shift. As you know, this is the first time in a long time that there is no hip hop in the top 40. Hip hop left the top 40. And most artists don't know why. Give me your thoughts on that.
I think there's several reasons. If I really want to be open, honest, and transparent with the audience, I think a lot of these artists, they don't really treat the music like it was something that they love, like it was something that made them want to make music in the first place. What I mean by that is a lot of artists were basically using music to pivot to other things, but their real focus wasn't really just making the best music, and the music and the quality of the music suffer, and you can hear it. So if you ain't even really trying to put out quality music, why should people still be listening?
Do you think it has anything to do with, decline in streaming dominance, that you have other avenues like TikTok, Discord, Patreon, other platforms, and artists are now having to look for viable paths to income that once was, when it come to your tape or your CD, that was your bread and meat. Now you got streaming services where, now it doesn't even matter, because if you're an unknown artist, any kind of streams or revenue goes to major artists. So now that shift is, now hip hop's not in the top 40. So now what do those artists do to try to find, some type of, audience, recognition, income? Where's the economy now that, hip hop has taken a break? Not to say that in 2004 and 2013, we did have this happen 2 times before, but I think that there's a real shift on this one. What are your thoughts on that?
It's funny that you said TikTok. So what I will say is, I think a lot of artists have kind of lost focus. They're not keeping the main thing. What I mean by that is, at the end of the day, the music is the product. So you should be focused on making a good product first, and then the other things will follow. But a lot of artists now, it seems like they're getting caught up. They're like doing it the opposite way. The best example I can use, because you brought up TikTok, a lot of artists, instead of just going in and trying to make the best song they can make, they're already thinking about, well, what kind of song can I make so it'd be a trending sound on TikTok? But should the focus really be the trending TikTok sound, or should the focus be, let me make the best song I can make, and then all of the other stuff will follow?
Right. So what you're telling me is, if you're a rapper in 2025, this should scare you, or it can motivate you, right? It's like, do I really concentrate on the bubble gum? Do I do whatever I feel TikTok is telling me, or do I kind of lock in and kind of build that core audience, similar to what Larry June has done, La Russell has done, what Griselda has done, that they survive without, streams or radio. It's just like their core audience is their core audience, and they're in that is. And I always say this, we have here in Virginia amazing music, but music was never our problem. I believe that everyone didn't have the access to the amazing engineers that were here because it was kind of a limited few that had that competitive edge. Not to slight any other engineers, but there were just some that their mixes were competitive to the rest of the industry at that time. And then you also had people like Serban, Rob from Master Sound, and a couple of others that really were dominating the space back in that time. And then media, right? So you can have all the music in the world if you don't really have the media machine behind you, which is what the record labels provided you, the creative directors, the A&Rs to kind of filter through that creative direction with the artists. That's what's missing. And I've seen other podcasters, and now I'm seeing former A&R executives jumping in the pot to say that this is a good thing, that, this is a reset. This is a reset of, hey, now we can get back to our corners. There's a need for gatekeepers, and everybody shouldn't have a voice, and it should be curated, but it curated by them, through them, and for them. What do you think about that?
Funny you said something about A&Rs and gatekeepers, and I'm kind of going to play devil's advocate here. To be honest with you, I kind of see the good and the bad on both sides. I will say I have noticed a difference between like back in the day when the A&R was like a pivotal part in your journey, and now they're kind of phased out. Back in the day, the A&R was the person who they basically made sure that you was polished and you were as good as you could be to make that next step into breaking into being a professional music artist. But what's happened now, you don't really have the A&R. So now a lot of the artists are having to come and they're having to make sure that they do all of the work to be their best polished self. But I think that's another reason why some of the music is suffer, because you didn't have that person with that ear that really will be open and honest with the artist. Say, hey, I don't think you quite ready yet. You might want to take a year and really get in the lab, do some push-ups, do some sit-ups, get yourself ready to make that next jump. Now you got artists just throwing out whatever, because now it's like you said, there ain't no A&Rs, there ain't no gatekeepers. It's the wild, wild west. People could just put the stuff, on whatever. So I think the quality of the music is suffer because you haven't had some of those mechanisms in place to make sure that the music is at a certain level before you go into being a quote unquote professional artist.
So I want to push back a little bit. So I do agree that artists need development, but also from a artist producer standpoint, some of this is survival. A lot of artists, with the way the streaming platforms are set up and the way that the social media is set up, if I take a year off, it's like starting over. So if I don't ride the wave that's going on right now, if I got any kind of motion, I've got to lock in with that, which means that the music will suffer. I would suggest, and I think Russ said it best, before you even start on that journey, that you should have at least one or two projects in the hole. So before you start on that journey, right? Take the time before you start to really promote to go, if I'm gonna let's say I've been working on songs and I got 50 songs. Well, that's 2 or 3 EPs, right? Until you get to the full album. You need something to sustain. I saw another podcast with Russ on it. He was like, drop a song a month, right? So not a whole project, but drop a song a month. And then that way, and then on that, I've done the research. They say that you should do 30 to 40 pieces of content on that one song. And I see a lot of artists doing that. So if the artist has to, if I'm the artist and I got to go and I got to create 30 pieces of content, and then I got somebody telling me, oh, just use your phone, right? Really not giving me a whole lot of direction. They don't really understand creative direction, right? So most of the labels not going to jump in at that point in the game when you just building up. What is this person's, where's that value that A&R is going to give that artist that has to keep in the rinse repeat cycle? And then where's the economy in that to keep it sustainable? Because if this A&R is not giving me any bread, and then, it's still a bunch of gatekeeping. And I think that we get lost in the infrastructure and not thinking about the end game first and the economy of the music business. It seems like everything, when it comes to the music business, everything else is the business except the music. I'm just being real. That's just like the way that I see it from my standpoint. Is I understand an artist they gotta do what they gotta do. I would say put 3 or 4 projects in the hole, drop a song a month, use your phone, or if you're savvy enough, get you a camera, get a buddy, get a friend that would help you. But also, yes, A&R, like, go to your peer group, other artists in your community that you respect, and get honest critique. I think that's value. And as far as when it comes to the A&R, I think that could fall nowadays with the producer, with beats going for $20 and $100. I think that's a role that a producer can step up and take on that A&R role. Because if you look at Clive Davis and Sean Combs, they were real producers. Now a lot of people get sensitive when I say stuff like this. It's like, you have people that make the beats, and then you have people that actually make the record. That doesn't minimize anybody in the process. It's still all part of the process, because somebody might make the beat, might lay the drums, the other person might lay the keys, another guy play the bass, another guy plays the guitar. But then you have one person that's kind of guiding where the song is, or has the vision of where the song. He may have gotten a great song, but now he's got to produce the artist to get the artist version of that great song. So in that, he has a vision. That vision should also incorporate some type of A&R. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, if it's a producer, especially if they established, they've been in the game for a while, they know the ins and outs. They already done, built some connections. They already got, a networking system in place. Yeah, the producer could easily take on that role. I think people back in the day, or what we consider how the music business used to be, the reason why people, had A&Rs because the A&R was the person who had the business connects. They were plugged in with certain people where they could say, oh, well, I'm working with this artist. And it's almost like you needed the A&R to kind of help promote you or push you to certain labels or to certain people to make the kind of connections that you wouldn't have been able to make on your own.
So what's the real reason hip hop isn't charting anymore, do you think?
Well, I kind of said in the beginning, I don't think, really, to be honest with you, I don't think most artists now, especially on the hip hop side, they're not really, the focus is not the music. And you kind of hinted on it too. It's like now the way that things are shifting, the focus is everywhere else. And it's almost like the music is an afterthought. It's like they know they need the music, but they're so focused on everything else. They focus on, well, I know I ain't really making no money off the music, so I need to be focused on, brand deals and selling merch and all of that, getting collabs with like shoe companies and all of this other stuff. But at the end of the day, man, the music, that's what starts everything. Like, how can you do all the other stuff if you don't got no good product? I don't know.
So I, take a shot at it. I think here's the real reason why hip hop isn't charting anymore. I think people are tired of the oversaturation of certain genres, and it's like a fatigue. And now with the resurgence of, like, you have pop, you have country, all of these other genres who have had a backseat to hip hop have now had to step their game up, influx new artists. Now, the thing about this is a specific hip hop artist isn't in the top 40, but hip hop is still in the top 40 because it influences pop, it influences country, it influences Afro beats and R&B. Hip hop's influence on the top 40 will never change.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as hip hop as a specific genre song, currently is not on the Billboard, but hip hop's influence is still on the Billboard, right? And I love Afro beats. I dabble in Afro beats and EDM myself. So all of that has a hip hop, whether it's a Afro beat, reggae, chill, EDM, it has a hip hop influence, and you can clearly hear it. And then the charts don't, when I think about the charts, the charts don't kill hip hop, the artists do, right? So to your point, if the music isn't good, that signals the fatigue to the listeners. It's got, you know, I've heard people say, well, I don't even like certain music because they're not even on the rhythm with the beat, right? You have certain genre of hip hop where they don't stay on beat. And um it's it's part of that niche market, that sub genre. But some people were like, man, I don't want to listen. A lot of older people have that. Younger people like, yeah, we bounce to it a different way than what you might bounce to it. So that instill could cause a lot of fatigue for people. So another interesting point is that listeners want to hear something fresh and new, man. And how do they get something fresh and new when they're not being heard? And then that goes back to the gatekeepers of the labels are saying, well, we don't want to put XYZ out. This is not profitable, right? So we got gatekeeping all over again. But once again, artists have to create their own platforms and their own ecosystems in order to survive. What do you think about that? We talk about it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it is always good to be a self-contained unit and not having to rely on other people to, see your vision out. Now, I do know that gatekeeping, in the most common sense of the term is a bad thing. But I will say that might be a little good to gatekeeping for because at least when you have gatekeepers in place, it kind of filters out some of that stuff that probably shouldn't have made it through the gate. You're like, man, look, man, everything can't make it through. Like that was a reason why them gatekeepers was in place. Cause we're like, look, we can't listen to trash 24/7. Like, can we like filter some of that stuff out?
But even with that though, then it becomes yes, we need that level of filtering, but then that's a uneven game as well because a A&R may not put out good music because it doesn't fit his agenda. He may go, well, yeah, I heard great music over there, but I don't have any financial connection to that, so I'm gonna leave that over there. So then that's the other form of gatekeeping, that you have great artists that can't get through because the A&R has his own agenda. So you still have it all over again. Yes, the influx doesn't happen, but then you still have gatekeeping the great artists. And I think that there needs to be a balance. I think that balance is that the producer takes on that role of A&R, and when the producer takes on that role, the artist needs to take on that role as building platform and media. So it's like, you have all of these pieces where you have as an artist, you got to ask yourself, what's the ecosystem or the economy of what we're building here? The end game from the gate. How do we create great music that builds its own economy that's sustainable? Right. And now I think and then the A&R the producer is taking on part of that A&R to that record. Prime example, like I mentioned, Larry June with The Alchemist, right? Every time they get together, every time they get together, there is media involved. It's documented. Larry June always has a media campaign, and even if it's just showing how him riding through San Francisco with his bike group, that's part of the ecosystem with the merch. Artists have to think outside of the box and create ecosystems that work for their niche market. And if you do not have that, if you're relying on streams, you're already losing. Straight up. That's the way I look at it. If your only goal is to get that stream, you've lost the battle, because you're thinking about the one thing that right now currently is gate kept the most. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, I mean, you ain't gonna get rich off streams. So, I mean, I guess if you just want to be able to say that your music is out there and it's readily available for anybody that want to be able to listen to it, I guess that's really the only good thing about streaming, but if you really going into it where that's gonna be like your main source of income from your music, then you sadly mistaken.
So I mean, and then also like if an artist is thinking that I'm gonna just wait for that viral moment, right? You got to chip away at it, and that's kind of how the wrap up came up. How we through our conversations, like, look, I was on your podcast going, artists need to create podcast. Producers need to create a podcast. You got to keep the you got to keep that ecosystem going. You got to be able to talk about it. Am I the best podcaster? No, I'm not. I have a lot to work on. I look at the clips going back and forth every day, and I'm just keeping it a buck, right? But am I going to push through? Absolutely. Do I have the resources to push through? Absolutely. Can anybody stop me from what I'm doing? Absolutely not. That's the power in, hey, no one gets to tell me no. But the moment that somebody gets to tell you no, they're in control. And artists need to understand that. And if you, as an artist, don't create a platform for yourself, you know, you're done. Because now what you're doing is you're fighting for how many streams I get. Now, what are you going to do? You're going to put ads on Facebook. You're going to put ads on Instagram. That's what they want you to do. That's what they want you to do. Everything else is the business except the music, right? So now Meta wants a piece, you know, on Facebook or IG. And then this other platform wants a piece of the pie. Everybody wants a piece of the pie before you actually get it. Then you got promoters saying, yeah, give me $500 and I'm gonna get you on a playlist. That's a scam too. The only thing that you can bank on every day is like, yo, let me jump on this microphone. Let me cut this camera on, grab my phone or however you got to do it. Let me talk about the music I love, this business that I love, and leverage that to build audience. And I'm not here licking toilets and doing goofiness, silliness. Because I already know a lot of people, man, because if you think about it, a lot of artists, man, I don't want to do no silly stuff, man. I think, I don't want to be in front of the camera. I don't know how to talk or just, you got to get over it. You got to get over it because the game has shifted. And if no one else can see it, they better wake up because it's not that the Billboard doesn't have hip hop, because if major labels wanted hip hop on the Billboard, they're in cahoots. So the major labels technically don't want to see the hip hop in there. They want pop, country, Afro beats. They want that they inserting that music in there. And maybe because those artists maybe they're a little bit more controllable. Maybe they don't have those demands that a rapper might have. A rapper might say, I'm bubbling in Atlanta and Miami and I want $2 million. I want a bidding war. And whereas maybe some of these other genres, those artists don't play to those same rules, or they don't demand those kind of prices or, monetary items in the beginning in their contracts. And the labels are saying, well, wait a minute, we're not even making money off the streams. And you want us to put all this money up and you don't produce the revenue that, it's the record contract, record deal is a loan. And if so many people default on the loan, that creates a hemorrhage in the market. And could this be what we're seeing right now, is that major labels are saying, we're going to sit this one out? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it has something to do with that, and let's just really be honest about it. I didn't want to talk about it, but as you was explaining all that, I just was thinking about it. Do we think some of this hip hop stuff and this fatigue might have had something to do with the beef? I mean, let's think about it. You get a spike. Like when that whole Kendrick and Drake beef was going on, it was like you couldn't, it was everywhere. You couldn't turn on the TV, you couldn't turn on the internet, nothing without it being in your face 24/7. And the record labels, they loved it because they benefited from it. That was probably the most money they'd made off of hip hop in a long time. We really was being honest. But with it being in our face for that whole year, some part, like you said, you get tired of it. I know me, I'm just being honest. And I hope people don't kill me in the comments for this. But am I the only one when I turn on the radio now, get tired when I turn on the radio, I'm hearing a Kendrick Lamar song? I'm like, okay, I get it. He won the battle. He won the beef, but I know it ain't just me, but I'm like, yo, how many more times do I have to hear a Kendrick song every time I turn on the radio? Like, I don't know. But and then Drake suing the labels. I don't think that helped because now it kind of puts a bad stigma on hip hop. It's like hip hop was supposed to be this. You take, you get the beef, you take your L like a man, you move on, but yet now you suing the labels. Like that ain't hip hop. Like the hip hop that we
Where did we
know,
do that at?
yeah, it looked bad. You know what I'm saying? Then the whole thing with Gunna and Young Thug looked bad. It was another bad look for hip hop. Now you like these dudes ratting, and then you gonna turn around and now they got video. It look like Young Thug doing the same thing. We like, hold on. So some of the dudes that we thought were some of the best, hottest rappers, now it looks like they ratting, and then you got one dude that lost in the rap battle, and now he want to sue the record labels. It just don't look good for hip hop, man.
And I think that, the question becomes, what are we really doing? But if history serves me right, we've always had these kind of problems. We've always had where the listeners get fatigued, like we said earlier. They're looking for something fresh and new, and they're getting more and more of the same thing, right? It comes in waves. At one point, when what some people would consider the golden era, right, of more of the gangster rap, gangster hip hop, it was culturally relevant, but did it serve us in the long term, right? Then you had the Afro, and then people got tired of that. And then we went to a more Afrocentric movement.
The conscious rap.
You had conscious rap, and then people got tired of that. And then we moved into the SoundCloud rapper phase, and then people got tired of that. And then we moved into the female rapper phase, and obviously, no different. People got tired of that. So now, where does that leave us as, artists, producers, those who love this craft? If we're just making great music and building no community, that's where our problem is. We're not building the community, and we're letting the major labels dictate what we want to hear. Not to say that they haven't always curated what we listen to, but the problem that the labels are having is that their methods and means of controlling that has fractured. Now the label has to try to keep up with what's going on TikTok, keep up what's going on YouTube, keep up what's trending on IG, keep up with the streamers, right? It's because what's happening is, and we talked about this a long time ago, that once that the power got back to the creators, the label was going to suffer, because now you can't just put out a record, or you can't just have an artist perform at a basketball game and think that that's going to push them through, because they haven't gone through all the wickets, because everybody's not watching that basketball game. Some of this younger generation, they looking at iShowSpeed and Casanat more than they're looking at sports or TV, right? So they're has shifted, and they're over there, and they're on TikTok. So now the major label says, okay, well, we can't control. All we can do is look at the data and find out where they're at and try to infiltrate them there. But then you still got to flow your artists that you're trying to develop back through the same creator channels. Those same creator channels, like an iShowSpeed or Casanat, that the label say, okay, he's big enough that we can stick our artists on one of his streams to kind of break them through. But look, now the label has to go through someone like Casanat. So he becomes more culturally relevant than a great artist. Whereas it should have been a great artist that turned into Casanat. Vice versa. And by building community. And I think that's what we've been advocating for the last 2 years on your platform and now here. But we're actually showing and proving what that looks like. Like, this is what this looked like. This is nothing glamorous, right? It's I would love to be upstairs, banging out, making some great music, but I know that this is necessary. Why? Because 1 hour worth of conversation is 30 clips and 4 segments and a whole pod. And that's 40 pieces of content, 40, 50 pieces of content that gets me through the week. This is lifeblood. This is what gets me through the week. So one pod, 50 clips. Now I'm adding more educational content, helping, giving back to the community at the end of the week, trying to say, if you want to get better, hey, here's how you get that kick drum or that snare drum to sound right, so your mix not horrible. So when you put it on the internet, people are going, oh my God, this is why there's no hip hop on the top 40. So you got to give back as well. And that's a way to talk about what you love and make it work for you and build that community. Now, as we go through this journey, we are well documenting what is taking place here. And maybe later on, we will have all of this information and compile all this data. And Kay, if we got all the data over the next 24 to 36 months, would you commit to doing a masterclass, maybe something on Patreon?
Yeah, man, we gotta share all of this knowledge that we've been documenting, capturing from all of the interviews, from all of the independent artists, from all of the the relationships and the producers and the people that in the industry. We definitely gotta tie all this up, put a bow on it, and make it available for all of those artists that's really trying to make it through these treacherous waters.
Yeah, absolutely. And, what do you think an artist going forward should adapt as a strategy to survive this shift? As if to say, the shift is hip hop is not on top 40, but how do we survive? How do I adapt and survive in this environment?
A couple of things, and we always kind of allude to it, but I'm just gonna say it again. One, you gotta be able to keep up with what's going on. You gotta keep up with the times. You gotta keep up with technology and the way things are moving. I know it sounds like we're beating a dead horse, but you kind of gotta start playing around with the AI thing. You don't gotta be perfect. I'm not
Right.
saying I like everything about it either, but I done wrap my head around that there's some things you just gonna have to learn, or if not, you're gonna get left behind. So you might want to start playing around with some AI stuff. And you alluded to it earlier. You might want to get your mind out of I just want to keep doing hip hop, hip hop, hip hop because I'm just some true hip hop, whatever. I get it. If that's your kind of music, that's what you like, it's cool. But at some point, you're gonna have to start getting outside of your comfort zone, start playing around with some other genres of music. If that's sprinkling in or like a pop sound or EDM sound or something that's more global. And that's kind of one thing that hurts hip hop is hip hop isn't really global. But when you start messing with pop songs, EDM songs, all like that, that's more. You're gonna get more of a global reach, and you're gonna start tapping into different demographics that you probably wouldn't have been able to reach if you just solely stuck to hip hop. Um, and you need to take advantage of being a self-contained unit and try to do as much stuff as you can, like we always say, and understand that at the end of the day, you want to put out good product, but you got to put out quantity as well. If you only putting out one piece of content every 3 months, you're gonna lose.
Right. you can't
Yeah.
even you can't even you can't even put out one piece of content a day and win at this point. And that, I think that people are not understanding that there is, and I want to go back to the other statement that you made. I think that if you have an artist that says, okay, I don't want to adapt to other genres, well, you better make sure that you're doing exactly what we're doing right now. You want to make sure that you create a subculture within your music, and that you do, and quick notes, we watched Griselda. I watched it from the beginning. Well, as it started to take off. Let me rephrase that. Once the Hitler Wears Hermes billboard hit Times Square, with Westside in that long coat, I started doing the math. And when I started to dive in, I started to realize they were dropping a project every quarter from the beginning. So that's 4 projects a year between, 3 rappers. So they probably did one independently of each other and then did one project together as a whole. So that's plenty of music that they were dropping. And then just imagine if they were dropping every quarter a song every month, but if it's 3 of them, they could do a song a week. Each one of them dropping a song a week, and they podding once a week. So they did a song, they get 20 to 30 pieces of content off just making a song, getting the beat, that whole thing, and then dropping that, and then dropping the clips to all of that, the actual performative content on IG, the actual behind the scenes and the talk pod on YouTube, clipping all of that up, running that all week long. What do you think that would have done for artists if an artist took that model on today? Drop a song a week or drop a song a month? Well, let me ask you, do you think an artist should drop a song a week or a song a month? Because Russ said drop a song a month. Is that in this current climate?
If you could do one a week, I would say is you always gonna be better the more quantity that you can put out. So if the choice is between a week and a month, a week is gonna be better.
But then we go back to, saturation. Like, could people get tired of you quicker? Like, and if the song isn't great. So if the song isn't, I would say this, if you make great songs and you need to vet those songs, if you make great songs, drop as many of them as you can. Like if you can make, some people are talented writers and write all the time and can write songs, 2 and 3 songs a night. Other people, it takes them longer. Whatever your process is, just make sure if you can get within the frequency of one great song a month, drop that and make the content to go with it. But if you can do more, do more. But you should be podcasting. Even if let's go down the one song a week. But if you podcast about that whole process, if you took that one song a week process and maybe invited the audience to follow you through that process and maybe chime in a little bit and then use them, your audience, as the judge that are maybe just a broader audience and not necessarily your friends and family. And then you get that feedback and then drop the official song that you could, let's just say week 1, okay, y'all wasn't feeling that. Week 2, okay, y'all saying this is a little bit better. By week 3, oh yeah, that's it. And then week 4, I drop, right? And then that way you're podcasting about that whole content and that whole journey so people understand, like, yeah, this is what I'm actually committed to. And you're building audience, you're building community, they're engaged, and they're part of the process. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that would be a win-win. You'll be getting content on both ends. You'll be getting the content from the podcast. They feel like they going along every step of the way, not just seeing the end product, and you're gonna be getting the product when you finish the song, and you're gonna be getting all the content from the actual song itself. So it's a win-win.
Right. And then, that way you can stop chasing the top 40 and you build your own top 40 within your own fan base. Your own fan base will tell you this is the top. Wow, that's crazy. Now that's a bar. Like if you structure your own content to look like the top 40 and charted your own music and then let people vote every week, like, hey, this song, hey, this moved up. We like this one versus liking that one. That's a great idea. Maybe I need to steal that. But let's go back and talk about the AI, because I want to kind of go down that path as a producer. And, the beautiful part about AI is with AI, you can drop a song every week. And maybe that's something that I'll document right now, that maybe that's something that I can commit to once I get caught up a little bit on these the wrap up pods. But maybe in the new year, we start testing AI's capability as far as I can write a song. I don't necessarily always get the right singer, but with tools, now I can get the perfect balance and get that singer. So maybe that's something that, I don't know, I can invest $18 a month and see what doing a song a week actually kicks back. And then mixing in my own songs with that and maybe collaborating with AI and seeing how that, I've already done that and that works out pretty well. So, but yeah. So stop chasing the top 40, build your own top 40 within your own fan base, and you'll find out what fans ride that really ride for you. So let me ask you this. What do you think as independent artists, the first thing they should do in this shift? What's the very first thing they need to think about, plan, figure out? What would you say the first thing?
I don't know. That's a hard question because I mean I could think of things, but I can't think of just one singular thing. Man, I would say you got to be open minded, and you gotta be able to adapt with the times. You got to be able to, like we keep saying, you got to be able to see what's going on with the AI and start playing with that. And you got to be able to. And there's a reason why the record labels are cutting the dead weight. They didn't like. They like bare bones now. So if the record labels are showing you that, then that should kind of be telling you where the state of the music industry as a whole is going. So you kind of got to be able to make those same adjustments. You know, you don't need a team of 5 people, 10 people. You, a cell phone and a producer might be all you need. And AI.
So my question is, do you need a hit record or do you need a core audience?
Now you got to build an audience first because, I mean, what good is a hit record if there ain't nobody there to hear it?
Woo!
You just playing it for yourself. You like, oh, this all hot.
Woo!
Okay, yeah, it was hot. Yeah, you got to build an audience.
But with all these, I mean, so, and I'll go back to that former A&R that I kind of picked up on some of his content. He's kind of he's got some motion going on right now. And I would say, because to him, it's, you know, you need A&R, you need somebody gatekeeping. But I also realized that as I listened, he kind of mentioned, you know, artists should, you know, an A&R should groom their artists and make sure they're going on, you know, it's the same thing, going on this podcast or this platform or, you know, going here or there. Nowhere is there a talk about the artist having the platform, that the artist is the platform, that they are the ecosystem, they have the audience. Because if the artist had the audience, what is the need for anything else? Like, because if Casanat was an artist, do you think he would be one of the biggest artists in the world?
Yes, if he could convert all of those people that be popping up on his stream to invest in what he doing or be willing to listen to what he doing or they like what he doing, oh yeah. It's crazy.
Because see, that's like back in the day, that's what they would have done to Casanat. You got this audience with a record label. Hey, why don't you do you a little simple jingle and then we'll cash in on it, right? So he's staying true to the fact that he's staying in this lane because he knows he's got the power, right? And I think that represents part of the shift. Now we're getting into it. Is that the shift with the top 40, which is the shift that the labels are moving towards, is to not have another Casanat or make sure that they're relevant in all the other sectors so they don't have to deal with artists becoming a Casanat or building or all of these upstarts of podcasts and media where artists are now shifting from music to media, and now they're controlling their media and building core audience from that media, which means that the record company would not benefit in a way that they used to. Is that a fair assessment?
It's a fair assessment. I would say that there's people in them other genres that could easily do the same thing. I don't know why they don't. I mean, just think about it.
Ooh, you going somewhere with this one.
If
Hold on. You really?
If Diplo started a podcast,
Ooh,
relax. Oh, I mean, come on,
ooh.
let's like just be honest. Like if these dudes like started a podcast, man, come on, man.
So,
If Dua Lipa started a podcast,
but one thing I did notice, right? I don't see those artists on those other platforms. I don't see a Diplo on Kai Cenat. I don't see a Dua Lipa on $1 million worth of game. I don't see Ariana Grande on 85 South. So is that part of the major labels' plan to not have to render funds to these melanated platforms to be able to break their artists, their investments? So basically, their invested dollars would have to go back to another channel in order to break that artist on the urban side, whereas they wouldn't have to do that on the pop, country, Afro, EDM side. Could that be part of the play here?
could be. That's a very interesting thought.
You led me to that path because when you said it, I was like, but wait a minute, I've never seen pop artists on those platforms. Like when I think of Drink Champs, I don't see Dua Lipa or Ariana Grande. I don't see that. Now they did have Alicia Keys up there. That was kind of a
She R&B though.
so yeah, but they don't. So the R&B podcast, Tank and his R&B Money podcast. Once again, those platforms aren't free to the labels. So imagine I'm a label. I've got an artist, Susie Q, rapper, and I need to break her. But by the time I go to $1 million worth of game, try to even think about getting her on like a Drink Champs or Breakfast Club or Angela Yee or R&B Money or whatever, Front Porch. Think about all the money that they're going to charge in a budget. The budget for this artist, and then we all know these budgets aren't large. Like a new artist, being that there's not top hip hop in the top 40, so the budgets aren't going to be that big. So let's just say $1,000 is the budget for the artist. $1 million worth of game. How much you think they're gonna charge? Well, let's start smaller. Front Porch. What do you think Front Porch gonna charge?
At least 1,500.
Rough.
That's on the
1,500.
that's on the low end. That's just for the interview. That ain't for all the other little bells and whistles.
So we're talking about, let's say there's 3 or 4 of those that you got to go through. That's 1,500. Let's just say 2,000 a pop, and we got to go through 5 of those before we can even get to the $1 million worth of game. Or right. So we're getting pop $2,000, $10,000 gone right there. Right. So now we got to get up to the big boys. There may be some intermediate ones. There's a couple of ones, the radio host podcast, and let's say those is $2,500 to $3,000. So you do 5 of those, that's $15,000. So we're talking $25,000 right off the rip, and we ain't done nothing. And those were within 1 month, right? And we ain't even dropped the project yet. So by the time we get to a Breakfast Club or $1 million worth of game or one of these other bigger projects, I'm sure that you're not just walking on a Breakfast Club. They're not going to give you that free access, right? So that's going to come with a cost. So by the time you look up, half your budget gone just trying to get on the media circuit. So an artist, in order to adapt during this shift, have to shift mindset, continue to make great music, but the mindset should shift to media. Access to cameras, pretty easy to a degree, right? But we have to definitely build up our knowledge so that we can become effective. So what are some of what the independent artists that you talk to, what are they saying?
Well, I've interviewed a couple of artists that's been on some of those, like On the Porch and places like that. And that's kind of I mean, that's kind of what independent artists do. They just try to find different platforms from what I've gathered anyway. Most of them have the mindset they just try to find different platforms to go on to promote themselves, but they don't really ever be thinking about trying to start their own thing as the platform. Like they're not really like, yo, man, maybe I just need to start my own podcast. They're like, yo, let me find somebody like you that I can just sit down with and just do the interview, da 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 da. I can do a little freestyle, you'll put it out, whatever. They're not really thinking about starting their own, you know.
I think that's unfortunate as we all try to survive this shift. It's a testament to where are you building culture? Are you creating that niche market of core audience that will support you? How are you doing that? But if you're only doing it, one piece of content a day or one piece of content every week, it's not gonna work. You're not gonna survive that shift. And then as an independent artist, trying to come out of your pocket to pay for all of those platforms is just the time. Here's a I wanna say this. By the time that you spend $2,000 on let's say that 10 grand, you could have bought you some lights, you could have bought you a camera, a lens, and a couple of subscriptions to something like Opus Clip, or Riverside, and played the game a different way. And I know this for a fact. This channel has been without any movement in the 3 years that I've had it. And in 2 weeks, I could tell you that there was views in 2 weeks. 53,000 impressions and 70 hours of watch time. And I have literally just started. I took all my focus away from IG because that's not a viable, this is more of a viable business than IG is. What IG is just that's your performance content. This is your core content to build core audience, to let them know what you're doing. And then you get them over here on YouTube, and then you keep them entertained on IG and TikTok. I think that's the best strategy. But, because ultimately, as we see, rap isn't trending, but storytelling still is. So every artist can tell their story, and they can tell their story every day if they smart about it. I know that a lot of artists are going to see former record execs all over the internet saying that you need to be gate kept. I would push back and say, keep the gates unlocked and build your audience on your own, build your own ecosystem. And that way you will have sustainability and no one can take that away from you. Now, to keep in line with this podcast, I want to quick note that right before the podcast, I went and watched 85 South. I did a little research on 85 South. Now, Carlos Miller was on Wildin' Out. He got let go, came back. I don't know how many times that happened, but he learned something from that. And what he learned was when they created 85 South, they said they came up with we're going to stream our show, but we're going to have content on YouTube, but in order to see that show, you got to go to our website and stream it. And it's $85 for the year or $8.50. That's what I'm talking about. That for those three guys, brilliant to say, we're going to do something special. We're going to give value, but to get the exclusive content, not only are we going to make it exclusive, we don't have to bend to anybody's community guidelines. Can't nobody take our page down. If we decide that we don't want the Dalmatian rappers on our show and major label says, okay, if you don't do that, then we're gonna take your page down, right? So like how they did Lil Bootsy on IG, like they insulated themselves from that and created their own ecosystem. And that is what I'm speaking of when I talk to artists and producers about surviving this shift. The shift is happening, it's real. The labels, in my opinion, don't want hip hop on the top 40. They don't want to play that game. So you have to figure out how to play the game your way, build your own ecosystem. Any last thoughts on that?
Hey man, at the end of the day, they want what's on the top 40, what's keeping the lights on, what's bringing the money. And them
Mm.
other genres of music are more global. So if it's more global, it's reaching more people, bigger demographic of people.
Mm.
Let's just be real, man. I'm just gonna say it. As much as people either love or hate Drake, the reason why he became such a big artist because he was in the hip hop lane, but he ventured out and he do more than just hip hop.
That's true.
He'd get into like that, you know what I'm saying, the dance music, and he'd do like them pop records and all that, and then he'd switch up, he'd be changing the way his voice sound, he'd be having different accents and stuff. Like come on, man, you can make fun of it all you want, but he laughing all the way to the bank. So he figured something out.
But to that point, right? So you'll have some purists say, well, yo, that's not really,
Yeah.
that's not to the culture. But then you have, but with that, I would expect that, okay, well, then show me what the culture is. Larry June can show me, Griselda can show me, some of these other artists can, La Russell can show me how to sustain that culture. So if you're going to take a pure stance on that, I would say I need to see that culture and how you do that in a way that can compete with someone like Drake, who is multifaceted. And let's not forget, Kendrick did it as well too. Like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, Kendrick this, but Kendrick made the R&B type records too, with Rihanna and a lot of different other people. So let's not get too wrapped up into that. J. Cole did it as well, right? So, it's not all, one-sided. I would say the difference between artists who survive the shift and those who disappear are those that shift to align their media business with their music business. That's all I got.
Hey man, well said, man. I couldn't say it no better myself.
All right, KA every day. I appreciate you being on this pod with me. Once again, this pod is called Surviving the Shift. No more hip hop on Billboard Top 40 right now currently. So what do you do? How do you shift? How do you adapt? We out. The wrap up.